Yeah, and so what that's suggesting again is that in an ideal situation we have high concern for people and high concern for production. And you really don't want to be down here where you've got little concern for production and little concern for people. But you know, if you're somewhere in the middle of the road, then you're probably ticking along all right-ish. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the interesting stuff really comes in when they start to say, actually, you know what, it's not traits, it's not necessarily whether you're autocratic or democratic or whether you've got high concern for people or high concern for production. It's about actually, it depends on the situation. So they're contingency models. Okay, because you could get a manager, you know, who's got high concern for people and high concern for production, but there are some scenarios where actually you might need to go, actually, I can't be concerned about people in this scenario, we just have to focus on, you know, the outcome. Yeah, or just depends on the scenario. So situational theories is depends. And there are quite a few different situational theories to look at. We'll look first at Fiedler's contingency leadership theory. Love it.
I'm so tired.
You're so tired. Do you need to stand up and stretch your leg? Run around the classroom once.
Yeah. I don't think we should have weeks off anymore.
It's only 6:30. Come on.
Yay.
Feel your motivation over there.
Yeah. So Fiedler's, I know this stuff is kind of heavy going.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. But this is what you need to be able to do for your assignment. So you need to choose two of these leadership theories. Okay?
Oh, this is it, this page?
No, two, you can use any of the earlier ones as well, that's fine. So, Fiedler's contingency model of leadership. This is a really interesting one, where he came up with this idea of the least preferred co-worker. Okay, so he gave his managers a quiz, getting them to rate their least preferred co-worker. Describe the person with whom you can work least well by rating them on a range of 1 to 8 points for each set. Yeah, and they've given an example down the bottom. So he's pleasant through to unpleasant. It almost seems a little unethical these days, but. And so what they're saying was, if a leader describes a least preferred co-worker in negative terms on the scale, they are more likely to be task motivated, so concerned for that production.
If they don't like a co-worker.
If they will say, if they describe their co-worker in a negative way, they are more likely to be more concerned about the task aspect. Whereas if they describe their least preferred co-worker, because this is the person you're like working with the least in your whole organisation, right? You picture that person now. Yeah.
So you got one again?
No, no. I sort of was racking my brain, but if you like that person the least, and you describe them in a positive way, then he was suggesting that would suggest that you are a people-oriented person. Does that make sense?
But yeah, I'm not sure how to read the graph.
Yeah, we'll get to the graph. Don't worry about the graph. Yeah, we're just talking about the least preferred co-worker situation initially. And so then the model's basic idea was that each leader has this LPC orientation. They're either people focused or task focused. So we can determine which of these they are by doing these quizzes. And then we also, so we take their focus and then we look at what the situation involves. So the situation is about leader-member relations. So That's about how much support a leader has from group members. How good is that relationship between the team and the leader? Okay. You know, is your leaders sitting there thinking, if I ask them to do this difficult task, are they going to say yes, or are they going to all come up with excuses as to why they can't do it? That would give an indication of your leader-member relations. And you can rate that, you know, it's good or it's poor, and so that will give you sort of favourable through to unfavourable situation. And then similarly to those other models, there's task structure. I need to bring chocolate first. Task structure is about that definition of the tasks and the goals and what's expected for performance. So similar to our initiating structure, essentially. And so looking at that particular situation, you know, like even within an organisation, it may be that sometimes there is high task structure in a given scenario or low task structure in another scenario. Okay, so think about the unexpected. So, you know, maybe when, you know, the Christchurch earthquake happens and people have to respond, is there high task structure or low task structure?
Hi,
Why?
you've got shit to do.
You've got lots to do, but is it stuff that you have lots of guidance around doing, or is it something that
If you were Red Cross, if your business was Red Cross, then yes, you
should know how to
what
respond.
tasks were and
Yeah.
and what
But
you
there's
were
lots of
doing.
unpredictable variables as well, aren't there? So there
Yeah.
might be lots of unexpected things. So there
Did
might
you-
be somewhere, you may be somewhere in the middle, in terms of task structure. So it's thinking about, you know, how unpredictable or unexpected is the sort of situation in terms of, you know, do people know how to do the job and what needs to be done? Then there's position power, okay, is the third situational element. So we talked about, you know, that source of power coming from the position. So does the organisation give the leader the appropriate power to be able to deal with the situation? Do I have the support of the big boss? So that's, you know, have you got the decision-making authority or the financial accountability to make the decision? And so then you look at your situation and you go, okay, I've got good leader-member relations, I've got high task structure and strong position power. So in this situation, actually, performance is going to be good if I take a task-oriented approach. I can afford to take a task-oriented approach because I've got these particular scenarios happening. Yeah. If I've got somewhere in here, then I'm going to take a relationship-oriented approach in order to get the good performance. I've lost you completely.
3 pages
All
back.
right.
But it's pretty cool, you got like little pointy things.
You like the little laser, all right. Just follow that round and round.
How are you getting
The situation.
for where those results coming from?
That's from assessing the situation. So they've taken, this is it's example, you know, like if you've got these, if your leader-member relations is good, so you categorise it as good versus poor, so you can, you know, rate it.
So that's your
basically.
test, that you do whether you find out your least preferred co-worker.
No, that's
Oh,
your,
what?
that's your least preferred co-worker. So that's about the leaders, you know, about them, whether they are people-oriented or task-oriented.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
And then you combine that with looking at these situations. So whether you've got good leader-member relationships, whether you've got task structure, what your position power is like, and that will give you basically which approach to take. You know,
Whether you do a
if you've
task
got
one or
good
a
or
people one.
relationship, yeah. So you'll be a task-oriented approach will work better if we've got these, whereas a relationship-oriented approach will work better when we've got these things.
I'm not doing that leadership.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. How does
That normative, is that, well, is that decision-making
Yay!
process?
It's a decision tree, okay? Remember we talked about decision trees?
Critical
Did we talk about decision trees?
No, but we
Yeah.
talked normative.
Staff behaviour relationship.
This is another situational
That was
model.
that in the first test that we did? That one of the tests you need something like that.
That was the normative decision-making model.
That was too.
So what
That's slightly different.
Can we go up
I think
past
so.
that? What?
That was slightly different. The normative decision-making model.
Was that
that was
identify?
identify
Oh, yeah,
the
eliminating.
problem,
Yeah.
generate alternative solutions.
One is just checking it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the team stuff. So with the normative, this is basically a decision tree, which a decision tree is a decision-making tool that you can use in any situation to help you make a decision. And all we're doing with this one is using the decision tree to help us decide which leadership approach is going to work best in the given scenario. Okay? And so the different leadership decision styles are outlined on page 12.3. Sorry, page 462, table 12.3. And so you have anywhere from autocratic through to group. So very similar to looking back, you know, autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire. Well, this is like, let's put a framework in place, define it. We've got two types of autocratic, two types of consultative, and then group.
Are they your outcomes?
That's your outcome at the end, yeah, like that's what's down here,
Yeah.
okay?
Yep.
So here CI is consultative 1, so the leader consults group members but on a one-on-one basis for their input and evaluation, but still makes the final decision individually. C2 is, you know, we've got actually, the leader discusses the problem with all group members but still makes the final decision. It may not reflect their suggestions. Whereas group means that actually the group makes the decision together and they're responsible for the outcome.
Yep.
Autocratic is just that our leader basically makes the decision by him or herself, basically. And so all these little boxes are just abbreviations for different situational factors that you ask yourself at each step of the way.
This
So-
makes tons of sense.
Who likes this one? So, you know, this is our problem, and then QR is quality requirement. Have we got how important is the technical quality of the decision? High or low? Well, that's going to depend on what decision you're making. Okay. Then commitment requirement. How important is it that your subordinate commits to the decision? High or low? Leader information. Do you have sufficient information to make a high quality decision, yes or no? Is the problem well structured, yes or no? So that's our task. That takes task structure, is that problem structure. Commitment probability. Do you think people are going to commit to the decision if you make it by yourself? Goal congruence. Do subordinates share the organisational goals to be attained?
Gee, you're welcome. Gee.
Yeah. Goal
Can you just
congruence.
use the example from McDonald's? Is that what you're saying?
You could use an example from McDonald's.
Oh, I use
I've
the
got the
example
page
for
here.
Is it?
Assessment.
Oh, okay. So what were they trying to do? They were trying to.
They're trying to introduce new foods into,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. You could ask it in any situation, you know. Can you think of another example?
I was reading on two, I think.
Any businesses or anything locally that you can think of?
Just on that CO there, where it says there's conflict among subordinates over preferred solution, what does that actually mean?
It means, is there sort of disagreement about what the preferred outcome likely is within the team? you know, if you get
Within this, like, as in like the employees.
employees, yeah, subordinates are employees,
Yeah.
subordinates.
I actually
Done.
wasn't answering any of the questions.
No, it's just this.
It was, because he's unsure of what to do next. So I just went through that on this. And he should do what I thought he should do anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you
Oh,
could,
yeah, I get you, yeah.
yeah. But look at a business's decision to open another branch in another town, okay? So say, you know, West Coast business decides they want to branch out into Nelson. You know, how important is the technical quality of the decision? You assess that
So it would be high, because it's a.
high, because you're putting a lot of money into it potentially. How important is subordinate commitment to the decision?
That's, I just say your workers.
It's high because they're your workers, but you can get it, you're
But
probably
you
going to get a whole new batch of
someone
workers
anyone
for the new
anywhere,
town, so
so-
very low.
Yeah.
So that takes you down to
Like the
LI.
same, yeah.
Do you have sufficient information to make a high quality decision? Do you know enough about the Nelson market to say that you could open a business there successfully?
There you go. No,
Maybe,
maybe
no.
you do, maybe you don't.
Is the problem well structured? Yeah, okay, we'll just say yes.
Yeah.
Goal congruence. Do subordinates share their organisational goals to be attained in solving the problem?
They will if I'm wearing them.
Okay. Yeah, well, if it's
Well,
about
look, you've got-
if it's about the success of the organisation, then
Then
yes,
they've got to be on board
need to
and-
be.
yeah.
You know, it's their goals as well. So.
Yeah, I agree, yes.
And do subordinates have sufficient information to make a high quality decision? Probably not.
No.
It's really your decision to make. What is it?
Constipated.
CO. Where are we? CI.
I.
C1.
I
So,
see.
so we consult with them, ask for their input, but ultimately make the decision.
Oh, exactly.
See, yeah, you'll notice that when you get out there. Definitely.
See ya.
I'll still be sitting here again.
Oh, the special one.
Whereabouts?
Mine.
There's a, you're going to leave, Cohen.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if this is all, if the next half is the intense as the first half, I'm really going to need that video.
Well, I think we've got through most of those.
No, I'm seeing a lot more.
One more?
There's Hershey and Blanchard's theory, there's the path goal
I think
theory.
it's just those two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hershey and Blanchard's theory.
Situation, leadership.
Any questions about the decision-making one?
I quite like that. That's,
Yeah, you sort of worked it out.
yeah, that one was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one was the bigger than the other one.
So it's basically giving managers a framework for
A
coming up with,
pathway,
you know,
yeah.
how much do I need to involve people in decision-making? Well, it depends on all these different factors.
Yeah.
So let's work through this. Could sit down and just go through it and see if it is helpful to come out. And you might disagree with how it comes out, but at least you know, might help you formalise some of those ideas in the process.
Is the, it's probably not even part of it, but is that time-driven decision tree in this book as well?
The time.
Yeah, I just sort of, when I was reading the example about McDonald's, it said, yeah, you've got your, decision for the normal leadership model.
Okay. Time-driven decision trees use when speed is more important than subordinate development.
Is that sort of, is it the same graph, like is it the same tree that you use?
Your question needs to be, is that in the assessment?
Says that the 8 questions used with the 2 decision trees in 12.6. Are there 2 decision trees? I don't know, it's just one, I think. Good question, Joseph. You can go away and have a Google. For sure, tell us all the money there.
You could bring that to us.
I've never even read that, but yeah, it's just saying that, you know, we've got different focuses. If time is of the essence in terms of decision making, then you might need to take one approach. Whereas if your goal is on developing staff skills, then you might take a slightly different approach. Yeah, because
Yep.
Because obviously getting staff involved in the decision making and taking a more group or consultative approach is also developing their decision making skills.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you've got the time to do it, then that's great. But if time is of the essence and it's really important that you make a quick decision, then you're probably more likely to have that less consultative approach. That will be where I think they're going to there with that. But yeah, they'll possibly have different models for it. Alright, page 464. Bertie and Blanche's situational leadership theory. So this one again is situational.
Yeah, I think this one was, I know we covered that in Ian's class.
In Ian's class. Yeah. Yeah, I mean if you're doing the leadership paper, there's some of the stuff would be just refreshment. Very relevant. Yeah, so it's basically based on that view that we still have to consider task behaviour and relationship behaviour. So we have not much has changed there. It's still about how that leader engages with staff and communicates and facilitates, and also about how much the duties and responsibilities and expectations are laid out. And so those two key factors. But also this one brings in the idea of follower readiness. This is one that people do often use for this assignment, because within the case study you can sort of see that there are some people that may, have aspects of follower readiness. So we can, and people tend to find this a little bit less complicated than the other ones. But follower readiness, first of all we'll look at sort of task behaviour. So that's about, how well defined are the tasks and how much guidance is sort of required for that. So it's either low or high, okay? Somewhere on that continuum. There we go. And then we've got their relationship behaviour, so those supportive behaviours. So low to high. So your leader is somewhere on that sort of continuum there in terms of supportive behaviours. And what that does is put you in these different quadrants. Okay, it gives you these different quadrants. So when we've got low task behavioural guidance and low supportive behaviour, we have we can turn over responsibility for decisions and their implementation. Okay, so we can delegate. So we've already talked a little bit about the concept of delegating and how the delegating works if people have the skills and the abilities and the knowledge to do the job and to make the decisions without, lots of oversight. Okay. So this is relevant for our followers who are able and willing or confident. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point taking a telling approach with staff who are highly competent and know what they're doing. It's just going to create frustration. So if we delegate decision making, it fosters their self-development, autonomy, decision making skills, and also motivation as well. Where we have high supportive behaviour but low task behaviour is with participating. So this is where we share ideas, facilitate the decision making. So we get staff involved in that decision making process. So we've got people here who are relatively high, they're able, but they may be unwilling or maybe insecure perhaps. Since they can actually do the tasks required, they just need a little bit of support and communication to facilitate them to be able to do that. Where our followers are unable but willing or confident, okay, so they actually don't necessarily have the skills but they're motivated and they think they can, then we might need selling. Okay, so we need to explain decision making, provide quite a bit of guidance around the task, and also quite a bit of support there as well to make sure that they master the required skills. So we need to support their enthusiasm and help them develop the skills they need. And then telling is where we've got people who are unable and unwilling or insecure. So telling, we need high task behaviour. We need to focus on close supervision and control. And yeah, getting essentially, you know, more autocratic approaches. So when people are unwilling to do the work, it can be really hard to motivate them. So using this framework, this suggesting, well, if they're in this category in terms of follower readiness, then telling is going to, it may not foster friendships, but at least we're going to start to get some of the tasks achieved. Okay? We have to give them high task structure and guidance and supervision to get them engaged in the task. Does that one make sense? Kind of. Yeah, so we've still got the relationship side of things and the task side of things, but we're just introducing follower readiness to the framework. Questions? Yeah, no, it's only 3 questions, but it's gnarly.
Questions, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, but not so much. I mean, like I said, we've based down a whole assessment on this sort of thing already. So.
Hopefully it's not too much. Remember, don't, I mean, yes, do, but
You mean a percentage of it?
look at the marks that each question's worth, and there are quite a few marks there for the explanation of the theory. But also think about how you can explain it in a concise sort of way. So it's around summarising the key points. Yeah. Like throw in the names of the people who came up with the theory. That gets you, you know. Marks just there. So use the Percy and Blanchard, Fiedler, Blake and Moten. Oh, you know, in the 60s, Blake and Moten came up with this idea that. Anyway, okay, I agree. Path goal theory you probably will find a little bit simpler because it sort of links back into Vroom's expectancy theory a little bit, and it's about, and it's probably something we're more familiar with as well, like goal setting. It's about, you know, how we set goals and have developed expectations around outcomes for those goals. So there's sort of that anticipated end result. And with this one, it was looking at how 4 different leader behaviours can affect that, you know, that relationship between the goals and how they're going to affect what staff actually do in terms of the tasks required. So the end result. So a directive approach, so it's kind of more like our telling or our autocratic approach. You know, we've got a link between performance and rewards. That creates this expectancy that we will get rewarded if we do what's required, and so we sort of increase effort as a result. Where we take a supportive approach, it can help us reduce